Hello, we are back. Well, I'm back. I was here at 10 o'clock, wasn't it? We got our time zones mixed up. But we're here. We're live. We've got hold of Phil. I can see him. He's in the green room. He's ready to come in. So we had a good preamble this morning, didn't we? Like 10 minutes and saying hi to everybody. So I think we should just jump straight in. So let me give you an introduction to Phil. We have international business speaker, author of Exactly What to Say, Exactly How to Sell, and Exactly Where to Start. Welcome to the industry angel, Phil M. Jones.
Thanks, Ian. Pleasure to be here. Appreciate you inviting me on the show.
Well, I've been waiting here since 10 o'clock, man.
We got nothing better to do, right? Nothing better to do.
I'm starving here. Yeah, you know, I think you're in the UK right now, but you bounce between the UK and US, so we got our time zones mixed.
Yeah, well, I have a home in New York City and then a home here, and I think technically my calendar runs on Eastern Standard Time mostly. So I think you said 10 a.m. and my assistant heard 10 a.m. and he got put in at 10 a.m. Just nobody talked about any international stuff. So no biggie. We are here now. Pleased that we managed to work it out.
And I'm just going to share this. So we're across Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So I'm just going to share this on all these different platforms, which is great. So I think we should talk a little bit about what's happened. Obviously, we've been in this crazy few months. The speakers, we haven't been able to get on stage. That's all kind of stopped. And we just had a brief preamble before we went live there, and about how now we're getting used to tech. We're getting used to doing this kind of virtual stuff. So what have you been up to?
Where do we want to go back to, Ian? How far do we want to go back on this in terms of what's been up to? Just talking about this pandemic period, or prior to that too?
Well, it sounds like you might have something to say prior to the pandemic, is it? Have you got something in mind?
I just always have lots going on, right? So I was running into this year looking at it being very much the busiest speaking year of my career up until right now. I'd landed a number of fairly high profile contracts and was ramped up and excited about it. But then came March the 9th. I think I was just looking at a few things that were juggling around, and we took the decision to say, let's get family and out of the New York area as things were becoming a melting pot there. And we moved we got a country retreat here in the UK, and we moved here for a month to say, hey, let's just take a month and see what happens as this stuff blows over. And we're still here. We're still here. So that was March to now. But business-wise, it's been good. It's been very much about getting to the forefront of the issues. And I've never classed myself as a speaker. I'm in the business of helping businesses navigate change. So when businesses are navigating change, it's like jump straight up to the front line and help them deal with whatever's happening right now. But from a professional performer point of view, it's been a headache, right? You go from being the main performer on a stage with a crew and everything else, and you've just got to worry about your content, your engagement, and your show, to becoming a one-man band, and then making all of the micro decisions that sit in between that would typically be held out from elsewhere. So in this virtual arena is I made a decision that said I wanted to do 100 engagements in 100 days. So from kind of mid-March, I put a 100-day timer on and said, I'm going to do a 100 event countdown, and did 100 engagements in 100 days, just largely to see what I would learn from it.
Yeah.
And some of those were pre-recorded live streams out to thousands of people. Some of them were small workshop style Zoom rooms with 12, 15, 16 people, and everything in between. So it was fun to be able to get to learn about this stuff and decide what you feel is necessary and what you feel is unnecessary, what adds to the experience to an audience and what detracts from it, and still figuring it out, much like I guess you are and many of us are in this space of trying to keep up with what technology can do, yet still remember what worked when technology wasn't the only tool. It's trying to remember how to serve the audience in this space. But it's trying and challenging times. It plays with your mindset in a big way because there's no one there, right? There's no one the other side of this lens. I know there's people on Facebook right now and on YouTube right now, etc. But it's not the same as getting that instant feedback from a facial expression or a twitch or even a round of applause, right? Is missing that you did your work and then you got to be able to live in the afterglow of your work for a period of time. That's probably the part I miss the most.
I think I heard something about how jokes don't work virtually. You know,
Right.
and I've watched you speak, Phil, and you do put humor in, and you will get the crowd going with a bit of energy in that. And what I've found is sometimes the jokes can just get lost like this.
Well, you can still make humor work. Just the setup needs to be different, and this is where I think the biggest difference between a virtual setting and an in-person setting changes. And this point gets missed on many. It's that the audience aren't all in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
In a live event, you've got 100, 1,000, 10,000 people, etc. They're all experiencing the moment at the same time. So if something's funny and somebody catches it, the laugh ripples a laugh, ripples a laugh, ripples a laugh, ripples a laugh, right? It is that people have that shared experience together. If that same 1,000 people are sat at home with one eye on the television, the other on their screen watching what's going on, and they catch something that's funny, the laugh often isn't out loud. It's like, there's nothing to it. It doesn't have the same level of engagement or response. So your setups need to be bolder.
So listen, you wrote 3 books, Phil, and
Seven.
What, 7?
7 books, yes, but yeah, really we're 3 as the kind of main face of the business right now.
Yeah, so these are the 3 that I want to talk about. Actually, how's your book sales going? And have you saw a difference? Have people been a lot more during the pandemic?
I don't know how to answer this question because the book landscape is forever changing. So take, for example, this book, Exactly What to Say. We have some distribution channels that are significantly up, some that are significantly down. I used to have a roaring success in Exactly What to Say through airport bookstore sales. Yeah. Now, those aren't going too good right now, given almost all of the Hudson bookstores are closed. So there's a factor that pulls it down. Also, with Amazon and much of the distribution network being impacted and books being moved to low priority items for a period of time, we lost a lot of momentum that way around because many bookstores moved to out of stock, even though they weren't out of stock. So there was all those negative impacts that had, and we're talking about a book that shifted close to 1 million copies on any given normal month. We could be doing 25,000, 30,000 units. So you get a chance to be able to spread. But we've seen good uplift in Audible. Kindle has been steady over that period of time, and lots of rereads. And I see that through social, where people are like, oh, I'm finally going to dig back into this and I'm going to, harvest the gold again one more time to get more ready. So the books I'm very grateful to my books though during this period of time, which as a genuine revenue stream is if I was reliant upon in-person speaking engagements as my only revenue stream, when 63 events went from booked, scheduled, and contracted to rescheduled, renegotiated, cancelled, moved to virtual, etc., I'd have been having one of those holy crap moments of, what do I do to feed my family? But I'm fortunate enough to say that we have a baseline in place that says we're good. So my speaking business has only ever been, on top of what else we have going on. So that the reinvention has been easier because of the fact that I'm not worried about where next meal ticket's coming from.
Let's talk about those 3 books then, because we've got Exactly What to Say, How to Sell, Where to Start. Where do you start? Which one was the first book, and where do you pick up?
Well, they've been written in a way that you could start in any order, right? So they're not a sequence or a series as such that is supposed to be read in order. The first book of that is Exactly What to Say, and the reason for the 2 that follow, if we're going to be completely transparent about it, is Exactly What to Say I own the rights to throughout, and was then approached after it launched by a major New York publisher who tried to buy the rights from me. I refused to sell the rights to Exactly What to Say, and I'm, in hindsight, pretty darn glad I did. However, accepted an alternative deal for 2 more books, knowing that we are looking to be able to, market our books. You can't market 3 books at the same time, unless what you do is that you find a way of being able to tie them all together. So Exactly How to Sell came out maybe 7.5, 8 months after Exactly What to Say, with a new New York publisher. And I needed to be able to piggyback the two. And then they wanted me to do another book in quick succession. Interestingly enough, Exactly How to Sell really is a rewrite of my very first book, which was called Toolbox, which I published in 2011. And it gave me the chance to be able to reinvigorate the brand and bring some alignment towards things, plus modernize some content. For the time, it was circa 6-7 years out of date, which for a tactics book is a long time. And then Exactly Where to Start was a book that I produced to help all those people that say, I nearly did this thing. You know, in our line of work, you meet a lot of strangers. And when you meet those strangers, they tell you the thing that they nearly launched, the business they nearly started, the idea that they should have done. So I thought I'd dissect the steps it takes to be able to move from an idea to something that's real. Because everybody wants to talk about how something real can be something bigger. There are very few people that say, how do you take something from an idea to just existing? Not existing and making like bajillion dollars, just existing and being real and being a thing. So I wrote that book. And it gives me a trifecta of credibility, right? It's not one trick pony of the Exactly What to Say piece. It's backed up with some deeper strategic thinking with Exactly How to Sell. And it's opened up with some bigger personal development stuff with Exactly Where to Start. And that gives me a good brand platform for all the things that I do right now from a consulting thought leadership point of view.
It's interesting what you said about time and about strategies. So do you, in terms of sales teams then, does the way we sell change over time?
Not really. But specific tactics might need to be considered. Okay. The average consumer you work with in my world wants to find a reason why something won't work more than finding a reason why it does. So you see how fast technology's moved, right? Is if you wrote a book today about tactical selling skills but didn't consider selling through a lens, it would be irrelevant to many, because they'd be saying, well, that would work great if you're in a meeting with somebody and you're turning face to face, but if you're over Zoom or you're over Skype or you're over this, it wouldn't work. So the update was more a case of reconsidering what had changed between 2011 and 2018, which is a lot. Right? A huge amount with how social media has played such a major part in human interaction, how much things like newspaper adverts and direct mail, etc., are more of a niche offering, yet they used to be a significant way of being able to open doors. And the approach of lead pages and where your leads and data would come from are significantly different in a modern market than where they were historically. So prospecting is different. Those kind of things. So it's not the very premise of how to sell changes, but some of the nuances to get there will. And those nuances are the things that can very easily make somebody turn off and go in the other direction. They're like, that's old. This is new. And people haven't changed that much, but platforms and technology have changed a ton.
So does the marketing change then, Phil? But the sales still is there? It's relationships?
No, everything changes, tactically speaking, but principles are the same. Mm-hmm. Same as marketing principles are the same as what they were back in 1918 today. It's just the platform or the tool in which you're using to be able to execute that principle is different.
So you talk a lot about conversation, don't you? A lot about magic words and things to say, and that is a big part of your speaking and training, yeah?
Yes.
So let me share some of that gold then.
What are you asking, Ian?
So some magic words that you've got, this is what you term it as, yeah, in your book?
Yes. And are you looking for some examples?
Yes, please.
Well, why don't we just throw it back to you for a second and say, what are some of the scenarios that your listeners, your audience are finding themselves in that might be very much of the moment right now? And let's see if we can apply some of the magic words to real life scenarios that you either present to me hypothetically or that are coming out of the listening audience right now.
Well, I suppose a lot of people be looking for lead generation, but when the leads come in, it's like, how do you actually convert them? I think that's what a lot of the my customers, my clients come to me for that.
Okay, so a lead has come through a online contact form, or they've come through a download or something that way around. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it could be.
And you're now looking to be able to reach out and approach that person either with a phone call, or you're looking to reach out with a text message or some form of automation that would then sit behind that and say, how do I engage them into converting and bring them over the finish line?
That's an interesting point. Would you say that was automation, or would you say that was more manual approach? What was the best, do you think? Depends on the value prop.
All of it, right? It's yes and to every single thing. Is if this is an inquiry for a $3.2 million villa in Spain, chances are I'd probably want to speak to them. If I'm trying to sell 37,000 widgets, then what I might look to be able to do is have an auto response sequence behind this. So that's again a principle-led decision. If I'm receiving inquiries that way around and I want to be able to engage in a quick conversation with them off the back, then probably what I'd do is I'd use almost a guaranteed success formula for starting any key conversation where it doesn't feel like a cold call. Now, this is a process I call opening fact question. So if you want to respond to any inbound inquiry, you start with a polite opening, you follow it up with a mutually agreeable fact, and then you respond with an easy to answer question. That's how you engage real quick. So say, for example, this was somebody who completed a web form. Then I'd reach out and say, hey, it's Phil calling, and insert name of company. I suggest that whoever's listening would use their own name and not mine. I'd say, hey, it's Phil calling. Then the mutually agreeable fact would be, I see that you were browsing our website the other day, and that you look for some more information about blank, right? Insert whatever blank is. That's a mutually agreeable fact. You see how it hits the show me that you know me button real quick? Like super quick. They're like, oh, this is not a cold call. This is somebody responding to a response I had. I gave permission for this. Then an easy to answer question. Say, for example, they downloaded a report, downloaded a brochure, downloaded some information. Hi, it's Phil calling. I see that you're on my website the other day, that you were searching for some information about blank, and that you went and you requested this, right? This download. My question would be, did it download okay? Not did you read it, or did you find anything you like, or what was it intrigued you? Did it download okay? Okay. To which they'd say yes. To which you say, well, what was it that brought you to the website in the first place? Now they just run with whatever that was in that direction on from there, and now you've got your context for you to insert your content of how you can help them. More to it when it comes down to conversion is knowledge and understanding of that if I have the word price written in my right hand and the word value written in my left hand, and price comes out ahead of value, the price is always going to look bigger. What most inquiries are asking is the how much question. And what often happens is we want to shy away from that how much response. Instead, what we should be looking to be able to do is to build the value first. We build the value first by approaching the conversation with curiosity, and we find a problem worth fixing. So typically in a response of this nature is I'd look to try and scale the size of the issue. And it might be a sequence of questions like, well, when was the last time that you noticed this was an issue to you? And how often does that kind of situation occur? And how long has this been going on for? Yeah. See, if what I do is I stack something with those three things, is I take a problem that happened last week, I find out that it's been recurring at a once a week basis and it's been going on for the last 5 years. That's a problem worth fixing. And if I can present a price point to that is less than the expense it's costing them right now for not having that solution, good chances are that I might be able to win the business. And I think that's the biggest mistake that people make when it comes down to conversion, is they forget to understand that our job is not to believe it's worth it to us, it's to help them see it's worth it to them, which means we've got to be able to create some form of comparison. Compared to what? And your thing is only worth it if you can tick that compared to what box, and they go, well, of course. But if you don't do the curious questioning to get to the compared to what piece, then what you're doing is you're embellishing your products and service with features and benefits, hoping one of them is going to stick.
So in terms of that pain, then, is it about amplifying that pain? Because sometimes when you get them to talk about the pain, the more they're talking about it, the kind of more they realize, oh, wow, it actually is a bit of a pain.
Kind of. I'm not a big believer in this, like, let's amplify the pain type thing, right? We're not torturists. We're not trying to be able to, to manipulate people. Yeah. I'm just curiously looking to explore the truth. Mm-hmm. What I'm trying to find is there a genuine fit? What I'm trying to find is this really worth it for both of us? Because I don't want to convince somebody it's worth it today for me only to find out later it's not worth it for them. And then we end up in a situation where they feel like they've made a mistake. That's bad for everybody. So it isn't this, let's amplify the pain piece. It's let's find the truth. Is this worth it? Let's understand why this might be important. Let's approach this with some curiosity, then move to a position of having true empathy, and then have the courage to be able to ask for what's next.
And what about that question about how much is it then?
Well, a few simple things on this. First is, if you don't believe it's worth it, you can't expect somebody else to. So whatever your prices are, you better be darn sure that you feel it's okay for that, and you feel that it's worth it. The more you do the work and you explore the compared to what piece, the easier it is to talk about your money. Let's take speaking fees, for example, right? Speaking fees are obviously hugely varied from one end to the other. One of the biggest comparisons that you find yourself up against is compared to another speaker.
Yeah.
My fee when compared to the middle manager and the exec team that would happily show up and do it for lunch is very different to booking Barack Obama. There's a huge contrast, but we'll all give 60 minutes on stage, and chances are we'll all probably do a pretty decent job. But the fee spectrum in that is huge. So if somebody's looking at booking Barack Obama and I'm a contender in that, then my value proposition versus Barack Obama is huge, because I know what I might be being compared to in that given scenario. You could be being compared to the sum of money that's been allocated by the leadership team for provision for speaking costs. Or you could be being compared to the size of the problem you solve. Let me take the speaking scenario. I might say, well, what is it about me and my work that makes you think I'm a good fit for your event? Right? There's my opening question. They say, well, I've seen you speak before, yada, yada, yada. I think you might be great. I say, well, how many people are going to be in the audience? They say, well, there might be like 400 people in an audience. And they might be looking for me to address them from a sales point of view. And I might say to them, well, okay, on any given week, how much is the average person in the audience losing for you in missed sales opportunities? Is it like 500 a week, 1,000 a week, 2,000 a week? Like, what is it? They give me a number, like, I might be missing out on like as much as $10,000 a week in missed sales ops. I'm like, how long has that been going on for? They say, well, it's been as long as I've been here. It's been for the last 5 years. So for 5 years, you've had 400 of your salespeople losing you $10,000 a week. How much longer are you going to let that go on for? They say, I guess that's why I'm speaking to you, Phil. See how now I could easily position a fee that is a fraction of the size of that hole that I just created in their world. That makes it easy to talk about your number. But if you cannot have confidence in what you're being compared to with your number, you're going to sound like you're making it up, or you're going to sound like you don't believe it. And if you sound like you don't believe it, never expect a customer to.
What do you think in terms of budgets then, Phil? If someone says, I've got a budget of X, but you're outside that budget, is that going to be a barrier to working with them? Or could you do something else?
Are we talking in the world of professional speaking, or are we talking in the world of anything else?
Well, it could be anything else, because it's all about, I really want to work with you. There is a good fit there. The budget isn't there. What can we do to try to make this work?
Okay. There's plenty you can do in that scenario. Firstly, you've got to decide do you want to do the work, right? Yeah. If you want to do the work, then you can explore a variety of different ways of being able to make it work. The first thing I would just get readdressed, though, is it isn't that there is a budget issue. There's an allocation of budget issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because whatever part it is that you're involved in, that is a part of the bigger thing more often than not. So I understand that you've got limitations to the budget that's currently being allocated towards speakers. Could it be possible that you might be able to reallocate some of the budget from some other areas, maybe make some savings on other things? Well, what do you mean, Phil? Well, answer me this then, are you expecting your attendees to enjoy the speaker or the coffee more? Well, I'm probably hoping that they'll have greater memories from the speaker. Well, have you looked at how much money that you've allocated towards coffee and cakes and those things, etc.? Is there a possibility that we might be able to reallocate some of that from there? Is there a possibility that there is a sponsor that could look to be able to work with this area, etc.? And note what I'm saying is there a possibility? Could it be possible? I'm remaining curious. I'm just saying, let's scope the possibilities and see, could we reallocate some budget? That's my first move before saying, like, here's my rollover list of all the other things that I could do. If I get to a position where then it is about the money and I still want to do it, my response would say, well, look, here's the difficulty that we're in, is the fee for me to deliver that service and feel confident about that service is blank. And I understand that you're not in a position to be able to move forward with that at this time. However, the other fact is that I really want to do the work. And from what I'm hearing is you'd like me to do the work. So I got a proposition for you. The proposition is this. Here are some things that I do find valuable outside of cash. And I'd tee up a list of maybe 20, 25 things. In the speaking world, depending upon where you are in your career, that might be access to key people within the organization. It could be data list of people you could follow up. It could be professional photography. It could be access to videos. It could be opportunity to sell your books. It could be editorial within the magazine, right? List could go on and on and on. Here's a list of things I would value in the other direction. Why don't you do this? Why don't you come back to me with your best offer of what you can come up with? There's a combination of both cash and any of these other things, and let's see if we can find a way we can make this work. Now what we've done is we've gamified it for both parties. Mm-hmm. We've committed to the fact that we're almost doing it, and they get the gift of being able to come back to you and say, hey, Ian, here's what we can do. And the number of times I've done that through the years, and I've been like, well, the CEO has got a villa in Barbados and said you and your wife can use that for a week, as you need to, or on arrival, we can get you upgraded to a better hotel room, and you can bring your wife and the kids, etc., and you can stay for a week in addition. Like all these little periphery things that start to come in, and you move it from being, well, that was going to be me working for a discount, to that's a fun deal. I like that deal, right? And that's the point to get to, is just to try and get it to something where it feels right. And then any time that you'd ever deliver anything at a discount, is I'd always validate that discount in any of the communications. So contracts, paperwork, invoicing, etc., is I'd show the discounted amount and I'd apply a reason to it as well, so that what we haven't done is we just haven't fallen over on our fees.
Yeah. There's a lot of preparation there, and I think you speak a lot about this, about, you wouldn't just rock up somewhere without giving it pre-thought beforehand. You would think this through. That's something you often talk about, isn't it? What would you script this, Phil? If you're going to see a prospect and you kind of get an idea on maybe how it's going to work and what you've got to say under your belt, like what your toolkit is?
Yeah, I think so. It's hard to script this stuff truly ahead of time until you found yourself in a number of these scenarios, right? There's no replacement for experience. I am a big believer that the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is in the moment when you're saying it. So that does mean you should give yourself the gift of at least scenario playing key situations ahead of time. Before you walk into the meeting, before you pick up the phone, think about the possibilities of where it could go, so that when you find yourself in a situation, you're like, well, I've already thought I might find myself here, and now you're a split second ahead of everybody else. Definitely do that. More than that, though, is give yourself the gift of proper review. Is after you've done something that didn't work out or did work out, sit yourself down and find out why. And then ask yourself, what would I do next time? How would I change things up for next time? And then that permanent refinement of your processes is what then allows you to consistently improve. What we are perhaps a little better at doing, which is a bad habit, is when something doesn't go well, we look to find who to blame.
Yeah.
Right? Is whose fault was it? Instead of looking inwardly and say, well, if I was to find myself in that same situation again, what would I do differently? Mm-hmm. And note that that's a better difference in mindset. Is if I'm to find myself in this situation again, what would I do differently? Is way more empowering than what did you do wrong?
Mm-hmm. So think about some of those things where you can have a little kind of wash up and what are our takeaways? How can we learn from this? Thinking about metrics, what kind of metrics do you see that people should be measuring, or that don't measure, or the ones that should be part of your KPI pack?
You should always have some form of metric around activity level. Whatever activity means to you, whether that's outbound phone calls made, meetings attended, whether it's contacts made from email communication, something that is activity focused. Behind something activity focused, probably some things that are conversion focused. That says from that activity, how many of them become them. And then I would probably have some metrics that are quality focused. Of the ones that do become something, how good of a something do they become? And all of my activity would be focused in those areas. It's the original input of activity, it's the conversion of that activity to the desired outcome that I had, and then it's the success of the quantity, the quality of those outcomes. If you were a restaurant, what would that look like? It would be, my activity would be based on how, can I fill my tables? So it would be then saying, well, what activity am I putting in place to be able to get diners back through the doors? What am I doing for referral schemes? What am I doing for outbound marketing, et cetera, to fill the tables? Then it would be, well, let me look at my conversions of how quickly do I turn those tables when I'm there? How many sittings and covers can I get in a period of time? And then it would be check value, right? How much do they pay when they get there? And I'd continually be looking to say, how do I make these things better? And this relentless quest of better is something that too few entrepreneurs find time to focus on, because what they're looking at is to say, what's the best practice? What's the best practice? What's the best practice? My personal belief is that best practices are mostly stupid, and that what we could achieve if we shift the focus from best and move it to better will outperform what any best practices were today. It just allows you to run past it. It allows you to be able to say, well, actually, however you're doing things right now, better is possible. So let's keep running at that. Let's keep running at that.
Do you think someone external can do that for a team, Phil? You've got an internal team. You might have a sales manager, and do you think it's worthwhile getting that external fresh set of eyes on a sales team every so often?
Depends on who it is,
okay,
and for what purpose.
You just want what better, like better. So if this is what you do all the time, how do you get better?
Yeah, I think bringing in trusted voices to your world is one of the ways that everybody gets better. Having somebody to ask you the questions that you're not prepared to ask yourself. Having somebody hold you accountable to the answers to those questions. Having somebody to show you a version of possible that you hadn't seen before. Having anybody provide an element of stretch to your belief system is a good thing. Having somebody from the outside come in and break things but not be around to piece them back together again, that is potential self-sabotage. So it isn't like, do you let somebody in from the outside? You just need outside perspective. It's, how do you choose the right outside perspective, and for what purpose, and who do you trust in that environment, and what are the consequences of it going wrong? And when running businesses, there isn't like this right way and a wrong way of doing it, right? It's this messy part in the middle. And I think too easy people can look for the silver bullet or the magic pill to be able to get them from here to here. And in doing so, often what they do is they break the thing that is already doing okay. Like the thing that's a solid 6 out of 10 that's working fine gets destroyed from somebody trying to find the shortcut.
And what do you think about bringing in new value propositions, especially this time that we're at the moment? Have you saw a lot of people trying to do that, where they're thinking, all my eggs were in this particular basket, and then the pandemic hit, and we kind of went pop a little bit. Should we be horizon scanning constantly for more revenue streams, do you think?
The we in this is something that needs to be looked at in every case in isolation, right? Is this what anybody should be doing is dependent upon a variety of different variables. So it's hard to give a canned or blanket response. What I would urge anybody in business right now to do that wants to grow is to get clarity on 2 questions. And the first of those questions is, who are the people that I help? And the second of those questions is, what are the problems or challenges that you solve for them? Now, if you have clarity over those 2 things, you can keep doing what you've always done and just do it in a different way. Yet, if what you do is you get precious about the way in which you do things. Let's take, for example, through this pandemic period of time, within the restaurant industry, there is a giant group of people that are saying, woe's me, I can't wait till I'm open again. And because of COVID-19, I'm not going to be in business anymore. They've destroyed 12 years. And it's because they've attached their identity to the fact that they are, a sit-down cafe with 13 tables inside it, and that's the way they've always done business. If they'd have said, who are the people that I help and what are the problems that I solve for them? Well, we help busy working professionals to not need to cook themselves lunch. right? If they knew that's what they did, we help busy professionals not need to cook themselves lunch. The second that the world changed and those busy professionals weren't coming out in the lunch hour, grabbing a sandwich and a coffee and then going back towards their office, they would be able to reinvent through the exact same lens they always had done.
Mm.
And I think this is the miss that many businesses have when things change, is they lose sight of what they're really about. And I look at it through my world is, right, I help businesses navigate change. I've never once said I'm a professional speaker.
Yeah, yeah.
And it just means the medium is always changing. And I think we have to have fluidity towards that. Now, we're here live right now. I'm going to prove how much things have changed, right? I'm wearing shorts and have no shoes on right now. But I'm also going to prove other things as I was just juggling some stuff around, right? 10 years ago, this was a one-day workshop that I delivered that we sold on DVD.
Right. Okay.
Could you imagine trying to sell DVDs today?
Mm-hmm.
Half the world doesn't have a DVD player or know what one is, right? The game has changed. As I was searching through some other things today, just to prove a couple of points, is this is a folder full of testimonials of me and my work.
Right. Okay.
Like written testimonials.
Right.
Right. And we used to use this to convince people to win business. In 2011, not like 1986, in 2011, this was a tool. Yet so distant from where we are right now. Whereas now it's about, Google reviews, online reputations, retweets, things that people are saying on Instagram. But the principle is the same. Can you collect evidence from people that are in your marketplace showing that you've got a proven track record and being good at the thing you say you're good at? Like, that's never going to not be important. Yeah. But you have to be prepared to change the way you deliver the message or change the way you provide your service. However, your service is still the same. And you look at the brands that have stood the test of time. They're the ones that haven't lost sight of what they're really in the business of. And that's where, that's where, like Domino's are one of the best examples of this is, they're in the business of being able to get hungry people food fast. They're not in the business of making pizza.
Yeah.
They're in the business of getting hungry people food fast. And they know they don't have the best product in the marketplace. They know they don't have the best prices in the marketplace.
Yeah.
But they tick the convenience box better than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I think your question about value proposition becomes really important, is you have to get clearer in your value proposition when the market is doing this.
Yeah,
when the market was established, like many markets were established, people didn't really need a value proposition. Sometimes it was just right place, right time. And building value propositions in markets like now need to be very defined with sharp tips of the arrow. One of the greatest things that you could build a value prop around right now is convenience. What are you doing to showcase that you are the most convenient in your class right now? Mm-hmm. If it's not convenience, it's what are you doing for credibility? What are you doing to prove that you've done this thing with huge transparency around it a number of times so people will trust you with that thing? So now what we're looking at is expertise combined with trust is your value proposition. And if not that, you're stuck with price. And in a challenging economic market, if your value proposition is built on price, you're going to need to be able to completely reinvent that every few months when you're based on being the cheapest, because you have to be aware of what everybody else is up to, which means you're in the business of following your competition.
So why is it convenience now, Phil? What's changed to make this all about convenience?
Because people are busy. People are stretched. People are pulled from pillar to post. What they want is the easy, safe option. Mm-hmm. Like, we're not necessarily looking at times where people are prepared to take the risk to pioneer unless they need to.
Yeah.
I mean, how much stuff have you ordered over the past 3 months through Amazon?
Way too much.
Right, but it's convenient, right? Like, there was a load of other things that you could have gone, or other retailers you could have gone and got those things from. But you're like, that's just the easy option. Yeah. It needs to be good enough. Like, it needs to have all the other factors with it, but the tip is convenience.
Yeah.
And I think from a speaker point of view now, it's like, what are you doing to add convenience for how easy you are to work with? What are you doing to be able to create fit for market title descriptions that mean that you are, relevant for the market that we're stepping into? What are you doing to showcase that you have access towards the technology that means that they don't have to worry about that? All little steps that say, I've thought about how I can make myself a convenient choice for you.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's a good place to leave it, Phil. I can't believe that's 40 minutes.
There we go.
Wow. Is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have asked you?
I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know what you're trying to get out of me. I got a lot in my head somewhere. So
What in your head?
Nothing specific that springs to mind.
So where can we find you, Phil?
I'm pretty easy to find if you search me with my middle initial. So Phil space M space Jones. You'll find websites and other interviews that I've been on and all those kind of things. If you come by philmjones.com, you'll find links out to all of my social channels. Most active social channels for me are Instagram and LinkedIn. So if you want to pick up on anything we talked about today, join the conversation, come stop by there. And I'm at philmjonesuk on Insta. So you should be able to find me there. Outside of that, that's about it.
Thank you very much. Well, for everybody, thanks for watching, and appreciate your time, Phil.